What we found is that typically high achievers have a lot of stress on their plates. And a lot of times their financial lives are the most chaotic ones. If everything's chaotic, it's like every financial planning meeting is like a crisis meeting.
A lot of the meetings turn into just like housekeeping, like getting balance sheet updates, getting updates from this advisor, this accountant, whatever it is. That's almost like a waste of everybody's time.
We saw all these issues. That's how we formulated our current structure at EWA, is being able to do taxes, wealth management, financial planning, estate planning, doing everything in one house and doing it on a high level. Now it's all automated and it's all decision fatigue proof. The end result doesn't just look like lower fees, better returns, save taxes. Those are all important, but you get less anxiety, better sleep, stronger family relationships, confidence during volatile market. When you add up your time, your clarity, peace of mind, is one of the best possible things you can do. Most people assume high net worth, high income people, they have their act together. What we found is that typically high achievers have a lot of stress on their plates, a lot of obligations, and a lot of times their financial lives are the most chaotic ones. So today we're going to talk about strategies, how to turn chaos into clarity, how to organize a financial life so your finances work for you, and so you don't feel like you have constant stress around your finances. Chris? We've dealt with clients that have 10, 20, $30 million balance sheets. And our process is we'll go, if you kept everything as is, we want to show you how well you're on track for your goals that you told us are most important. And then we'll typically do a second plan. And a lot of times we find that goals are, simplifying, having less stress. So walk through some real life examples of what we've seen with these big balance sheets or big incomes. What are the biggest problems that we see?
Yeah, I think if we start with just big incomes first, a lot of times there's multiple sources. Maybe there's base salary coming in that could be W-2, or maybe there's K-1 income and it's different tax treatment. So oftentimes there's a good baseline that covers most expenses, but then variable income gets introduced, whether it's from real estate, bonus, whatever it is. And there's just all of these dollars flowing into one account and everything gets commingled and a little bit messy. So I think that can be kind of the start of a lot of problems, because a lot of these people see a really big number come in. It feels like we can do pretty much.
We can afford this or that or that. Yep.
Yeah, which is true. They can't afford it, but oftentimes it's just everything's a priority. So I think a big part of our job is helping them define what those priorities are and then coming up with a game plan on how to attack each of them.
Yeah. And we were looking to make one decision that eliminates thousands of decisions. So example of that would be, recently we were working with a client that has, it's like around 1.5 million of income, but basically like $1 million of it was run through a traditional payroll. And so the tax was being withheld. The other $500,000 was through K-1, 1099s, and no taxes being withheld. And before I started working with us, he's like, yeah, I already had this like huge, like $250,000 tax surprise. And what had happened there was two things. One, on the $1 million, there wasn't the right tax withholding. So some of it was bonuses and they were withholding at 24 when they should have been at 37%. And then obviously the 500, the 1099K1, there was no withholding. So what we've started to do with this now new client is two things. One, we're looking at auditing on an annual basis what his tax liability is going to be. Not perfectly, but just high level ballpark, right? So what happened before is he'd had this huge tax surprise. His prior tax account would say, hey, you owe $200,000 or $300,000. And he's like, well, how do I come up with this? And then it's like, well, if he makes $1.5 million, no, you can't afford that. I mean, a financial plan, the money's just going to leak away. And, usually the money's not liquid unless you've got a good financial plan. That was problem number one. Number two, he's like, okay, let's just do these safe harbors. Now he's handing this client homework. We have to write, this guy was in Pennsylvania. So federal, state, local tax, like these checks and manage every quarter. So our recommendation was simple. Two things. One, we set up a reverse budgeting system, two accounts, one fixed, all your fixed costs and all your fixed savings. You can't touch that account. It's in and it's out. And this has got everything on track. Mortgage payments, car payments, savings, into brokerage accounts, 529s for the kids, etc. And then the variable gets the rest, and that's the swiping, that can fluctuate. He was averaging like 20 a month, some months 10, some months 30, the vacation months, but average throughout the year, we did a past year review 20 a month. So now the one decision was agreeing to do that. Now he's eliminated thousands of decisions. Can we afford this? Can we do this? Can we tracking this one bucket of money and tricking your mind to think you have enough money when you don't? Now he just has to track the one account where it's like, if it's there, it's there, if it's not. And so you kind of, your mind gets used to this money temperature over time. We eliminated all the stuff that has to happen, and now it's just the swiping that him and his spouse have to track. So that's number one. Number two is what we did is we took all of the estimated income, the 500,000, we just increased his withholding on his paycheck from a federal perspective. So, it ended up being, I think it was like, because we also did a bunch of stuff for the 1099. We did a second 401k and a cash balance plan, right, to offset a lot of that income. So he's gonna owe like an extra like 150 of tax now. For this guy, we did 12 a month extra of the federal withholding on the W-2 side. So at the end of the year, he's going to have no tax surprise whatsoever. It's all automated. We're going to pay a little bit more of a Pennsylvania local tax, a little bit of interest on that, but who cares? I mean, a guy that's busy doesn't need to be writing checks every 3 months for a couple $100 to local taxes. So now it's all automated and it's all decision fatigue proof. This is just to talk about what you said, the high income. This is one part of the financial plan, high income chaos. As far as like the financial planning aspect goes and like the savings aspect, how do we address that between, short-term, mid-term, long-term buckets, et cetera?
Yeah. So first step, I think you mentioned it, all the paycheck, we recommended to route that to a money market account with Fidelity, who we use as the custodian. But so all the paycheck goes from base directly into that money market. And then we looked at what's fixed and variable in the budget, sent that number back to the checking so they had that money temperature set. And then given that his income was sufficient to cover everything, as those bonuses and extra income flow in, that's going to naturally accumulate a surplus in the money market. So from there, usually it's a quarterly decision. How much do we want to move to the brokerage? How much do we want to move to 529s and whatnot? So we have these targets addressed of, we want to achieve this savings rate to get you to, X amount of dollars 10 years from now. So it makes it really clean and easy because the money's already there. It's not like in a checking account or spent already because we already fixed the budget. It's all automated. And now all the planning decisions can be coordinated from just one account versus maybe several checking accounts, savings accounts, all these other buckets that now it's just very clean.
No question. Yeah. And again, that's one decision eliminating lots of decisions. Like literally every day we make financial decisions. And now it's just, do I have enough? All day you need to worry about is, do I have enough money for the variable account? 20 a month we average, just checking that one account. And then, obviously it's a credit card getting paid off from that checking account. So, okay, let's talk about now complex or chaotic balance sheets. So maybe an older person that's kind of accumulated all these private investments. Maybe they have 3 different financial advisors, 50 accounts spread out everywhere. How often do we see this? And then, how do we address it?
Yeah, pretty frequently. And I think the big overarching thing more often than not is there's one person that's controlling everything for the most part, and the other person isn't really involved in the day-to-day or knows what's going on. So
it's usually the husband that gets like the chaos, and then it's like the wife that gets involved that helps get the clarity part of it done. No generalizations, but if we're to make one, that would be it.
So the first step, I think, is getting both people, if they're married, at the table and talking through it so that, one, we can confirm that both goals align. Because, as you know, a lot of times you'll meet with one person and says, oh, they say we a lot and they talk about our goals and whatnot. But then whenever we get both spouses to the table, there's conflict or disagreement. Shouldn't say conflict, but they have different perspectives on legacy, maybe on whatever it is. So I think first thing is just getting everybody to the table so that they know exactly what is really here so that we can coordinate these decisions better. So I think that's the case in a lot of, not just high net worth, like we're talking about here, but certainly I think it's more common with those balance sheets that you're saying, like 10, 20, or 30, that one person's usually taking the reins, the other person's not involved. So I think that getting just the alignment between both spouses is step number one, I think, to success, at least what we've seen.
No question. And then do you, like, from a multiple account standpoint, from a multiple advisor standpoint, from estate plan or CPA, what do you think will best serve a high net worth client? Like, what's the ideal end result?
Yeah, I think consolidation, having as many decisions coordinated with one team as possible goes such a long way, because whether it's income or net worth, if you break down the value of their time, a lot of times it's $1,000, $2,000 an hour at this level. So saving their time and streamlining everything goes so far. And then you get into the logistics and the technical side of it. Like if one person's getting advice from this portfolio manager, this accountant, maybe it's not in alignment and they're just getting conflicting info. So that can drag out decisions, years sometimes, and important decisions that need to be done timely. So just having a cohesive strategy with all of these different silos in the plan, whether it's estate planning, investments, insurance, taxes, having all of that coordinated with one group can go a long way to saving time and making sure efficiencies are captured.
Yeah, no question. I would add, if you get to that end ideal result you mentioned, you have one clear financial picture. So you've got clear financial reporting. Everything's visible in one place. No mystery accounts, clear net worth, clear cash flow. A lot of people think I need money in different accounts to like diversify. The reality is like a custodian like Fidelity or Schwab. I mean, you can keep $500,000 SPIC guaranteed cash, in like a bank at 250, and Fidelity it's up to 1.9 because they've got extra insurance on top of just cash, and up to $1 billion of securities under your name. So you have to think about cybersecurity ramifications. And so like, does spreading your money out in different banks, does that increase security or decrease security? I'd argue it decreases security, because the likelihood that you're going to forget about something, you have more account everywhere versus having everything centralized. It's going to be much easier for you to monitor it. You can put safeguards, you can lock the accounts. So like there's no withdrawals or incoming if you think, you've been compromised in any way. So having everything in one place, as long as a good custodian, actually de-risks you significantly. From what we've seen, there's pros and cons. I'm saying in general, when you add up your time, your clarity, peace of mind, consolidation is one of the best possible things you can do. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I think like I can think of spreadsheets that we've put together of people whenever we meet with them for the first time. It's like 40 rows of different accounts. Yep, it's a mess. And a lot of times we'll go through another meeting or two and they're like, oh, I have this other account that I totally forgot about. So it's like they can't even keep track of it. So it's how are you supposed to have a strategy if you don't even know where stuff is, how it's invested? So I think at that level, coordinating everything is just so important.
Yeah, once everything is coordinated, I think I think having defined roles, defined decision rights, who's quarterbacking. And so that's, basically we saw all these issues. That's how we formulated our current structure at EWA, is being able to do taxes, wealth management, financial planning, estate planning, doing everything in one house and doing it on a high level. So have different advisors, you're gonna get differing opinions. Someone's gonna be like a salesman, and so you're spending half the time just like debunking why this thing is the stupidest idea in the world, and doing it on a professional level. But you're gonna save so much time, so much stress by having everything, so much fees by having everything under one roof. It's crazy. And then you can also start involving your kids on a basis that you feel comfortable with, to make sure their education and financial literacy is at a high level versus it being, spread out in an absolute chaotic format. Let's assume this is all done. What does the planning rhythm look like after that?
That's really the heavy lifting, is getting everything consolidated. From there, then we can get into our normal cadence of State of the Union reviews. Have the goals change, checking in on priorities that we talked about maybe a year or 2 years ago, then just monitoring the ongoing situation. Like, what do you want to do from here? It just makes that whole process a lot cleaner, versus whenever stuff's spread out, a lot of the meetings turn into just like housekeeping, like getting balance sheet updates, getting updates from this advisor, this accountant, whatever it is. That's almost like a waste of everybody's time, rather than focusing on what we're actually hired to do for them, develop a plan and, work towards the goals. So a lot of times we're just spinning wheels and wasting everybody's time by getting information and running around.
Yeah, I mean, if your advisors talk about like how real estate perform versus like what AI stuff, I mean, that's not a financial plan. That's going to lead to dopamine and like trying to do different investments. And like once you have a centralized financial plan in place, clients can call you for anything, and you're going to help them, make good decisions based upon their consolidated finance, and easily be able to show them what the effect is if they're doing a private investment or if they're wanting to buy a vacation house. It makes everything flow so much easier, having all their tax information in house, and knowing there's no cash flow surprises. That is huge. And so your financial planning can become much more, like you said, a regular cadence versus like, if everything's chaotic, it's like every financial planning meeting is like a crisis meeting. Like, we owe this, and what do we do? What do we do? And it's like, if you have something consolidated, clarified, out of that chaotic spiral into like a simplified format, there's no crisis meetings anymore.
Yeah.
You've got peace of mind back on your plate, lower stress levels, and now you're making decisions from a place of joy and abundance, not out of fear or scarcity, which is a huge shift. And chaos will keep you in that fear and scarcity mindset.
Yeah, for good. In a lot of those situations, like, it turns into us putting homework on these people's plates, because then like pre-meeting, we're like, can you please send us statements for this account, for this one, for this one? And then, I don't know, we're always asking them for something rather than focusing on like what we want to plan towards. So it's, again, I know I mentioned it's like wasting time, but a lot of it just turns into like herding cats kind of,
Yeah.
and spending time in the wrong areas.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I'd say the other thing too, once you have this is, have clear priorities. What is lifestyle? What's family support? What's your giving? What's your legacy? There's fewer debates and more alignment, more expectations are explicit. And then I would say the end result doesn't just look like lower fees, better returns, save taxes. Those are all important, but you get less anxiety, better sleep, stronger family relationships, confidence during volatile markets. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And you can focus on your life, not in your head, like where does everything sit financially, which is a huge shift as well once you do have that clarity.
For sure.
Closing thoughts. Successful families don't mean just like a high balance sheet. It means you have, low stress, extreme clarity, very little confusion about your finances, and a balance sheet that you don't have any regret and that works for you under any kind of changing life circumstances. Pretty simple. And you save that non-renewable resource, which we always talk about, which is your time. You're never going to get that back. And the more chaos, the more advisors, the more meetings, your time leaks are incredible.
Yeah.
What's the quote you said? Something about like water seeping in through cracks or something like that.
Yeah, I think the universe in general, doesn't like open space. So if you think about where dirt and water, it kind of goes into cracks. And you think about time is the same way. You got to call shotgun on your time and be intentional about it. The great quote is, don't prioritize your schedule your priorities.
Nice.
Yeah, big mindset shift. So, all right, thanks for joining us, everybody.